Do you remember that feeling? The click of a doorknob, the soft resistance of a closed door, and then a world all your own. A sanctuary, a declaration, a secret whispered on the air. We're talking about the bedrooms of the 1970s, those vibrant, slightly rebellious spaces where a teenager truly came into their own. While some things linger across the decades, a messy pile of clothes, perhaps a faint scent of forgotten dreams, there are certain objects that were once as common as breathing in those rooms that have all but vanished from the landscape of modern youth. Today, we're going to walk back through that open door, past the scattered album covers and the half-eaten snack wrappers, to rediscover four of those iconic pieces that defined an era and then, slowly, faded into memory. Our journey begins with something that truly set the tone for any self-respecting 1970s teenage room, the beanbag chair. The beanbag. You remember them, don't you? Not the structured, supportive kind we see occasionally today, but the gloriously amorphous, utterly formless giants that swallowed you whole. Often covered in a plush, slightly shimmering vinyl, sometimes in colors so vibrant they practically hummed, like avocado green or harvest gold, or a deep, rich chocolate brown. These were the ultimate in casual seating. They weren't furniture in the traditional sense, they were more like an adaptable landscape. You'd plop down, and the thousands of tiny polystyrene beads inside would shift and conform, molding to your every curve. It was an embrace, a gentle hug that said, "Relax. You're home." You'd sink so low that sometimes your knees would be up near your ears, a perfect position for hours of phone calls, for leafing through a new issue of Rolling Stone, or simply staring at the ceiling, lost in thought. They were lightweight enough to be dragged around, from the corner by the stereo to the center of the room for a group powwow, or even out onto the porch for an impromptu sunbath. But they weren't without their quirks. The sound they made when you shifted, a gentle rustling, almost a whisper, was as distinctive as their feel. And the dreaded tear. One small puncture, and suddenly a white snowstorm of beads would erupt, scattering across the carpet like 1,000 tiny escapees. Patching them was a common rite of passage, often with electrical tape, making them look even more loved, more lived in. The beanbag chair wasn't just a place to sit, it was a symbol of the decade's relaxed, unbuttoned ethos, a rejection of formality, and a joyful embrace of comfort. Now, while beanbags exist in some form, that specific, shapeless, vinyl-clad titan of comfort from the 1970s has largely disappeared, replaced by more structured, less personal seating options. It was a unique blend of casual rebellion and pure, unadulterated comfort, a true 1970s icon. Next, let's talk about the walls. Not just any walls, but walls transformed into a vibrant, ever-changing gallery of hopes, dreams, and heroes. I'm speaking, of course, about the poster-covered walls that were a hallmark of nearly every 1970s teenager's bedroom. Today, you might see a framed print or two, perhaps a sleek, minimalist design. But back then, it was a tapestry, a collage, a riot of images tacked up with thumbtacks, masking tape, or sometimes, daringly, even scotch tape directly onto the paint. You remember the sheer variety, don't you? Farrah Fawcett's iconic red swimsuit poster, a ubiquitous presence in countless rooms, radiating an effortless California cool. There were the rock gods and goddesses, Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, Queen, Fleetwood Mac, their album art sometimes enlarged to poster size, their faces looking out with a mix of defiance and allure. Bruce Lee mid-kick, a symbol of power and discipline. You might find a philosophical quote rendered in psychedelic script, or a fantastical landscape with a soaring eagle. Then there were the environmental awareness posters, with their gentle messages of preservation, often featuring a lone tree or a pristine mountain lake, reminding us of a budding consciousness. And let's not forget the black light posters, with their fluorescent inks that sprang to life under the glow of a special bulb, transforming the room into an otherworldly realm of swirling colors and hidden messages. The process of putting them up was a ritual. Carefully unrolling a newly acquired poster, smoothing out the creases, deciding on the perfect spot, often overlapping existing ones, creating layers of history and personal narrative. Every thumbtack was a decision. Every corner secured a statement. These walls weren't just decorative. They were a living, breathing autobiography, a visual diary of a teenager's evolving tastes, their passions, their allegiances. They were loud, sometimes chaotic, and utterly, authentically personal. You could read a person's soul by looking at their bedroom walls. Today, with digital screens and curated feeds, the tangible, tactile experience of a poster-covered wall, a physical declaration of self, has largely faded. It's a quieter form of self-expression now, less about the grand visual statement and more about the fleeting image on a screen. But for those of us who lived it, those walls remain a powerful, vivid memory. Our third stop brings us to an object that was less about utility and more about pure, mesmerizing ambience, the lava lamp. Do you remember the hypnotic glow? Often found perched on a bedside table, a dresser, or even on the floor in a corner, these curious devices were more than just lamps. They were miniature, self-contained universes. Shaped like a rocket or a tapered cylinder, with a metal base and cap, the magic happened inside the glass vessel. There, suspended in a clear or colored liquid, was a blob of wax. As the bulb in the base heated up, the wax would slowly warm, becoming less dense, and would begin to rise in amorphous, ever-changing shapes. It would stretch, divide, merge, and then, as it cooled near the top, it would slowly descend, only to begin its ascent once more. It was a slow, deliberate dance, a silent ballet of light and color that captivated the eye and soothed the mind. You could lose yourself for minutes, sometimes hours, just watching the wax undulate and flow. They came in a kaleidoscope of color combinations: red wax in clear liquid, blue wax in yellow, purple wax in green, each combination creating its own unique mood. The light they cast was soft, diffused, and utterly distinctive, painting the room in a warm, psychedelic glow that was perfect for late-night conversations, listening to records, or simply drifting off to sleep. The lava lamp was a symbol of the counterculture, of the fascination with fluidity, with mind-bending visuals, and with a more relaxed, unhurried pace of life. It wasn't about speed or efficiency. It was about the experience, the visual poetry of movement. While you might occasionally spot a modern version, the true, iconic lava lamp of the 1970s, with its specific weight and feel and that unmistakable, almost syrupy flow, has largely given way to LED strips and digital light shows. The slow, organic magic of the lava lamp, however, remains a potent symbol of a more contemplative, visually immersive era. And finally, we arrive at what was arguably the heart and soul of any 1970s teenager's bedroom, the very engine of their personal world, the record player and its accompanying stacks of vinyl. Oh, the rituals. You remember them, don't you? Not just a device for playing music, but a centerpiece, a shrine to sound and self-expression. Often found on a small table, a dresser, or even on the floor, these record players came in various forms. Some were sleek, component systems with separate turntables, amplifiers, and speakers. Others were all-in-one consoles, sometimes with an 8-track or cassette deck integrated. But central to all was the turntable, waiting patiently for its vinyl cargo. The sound of the needle dropping onto the grooves, that faint crackle before the music swelled, was as much a part of the experience as the music itself. And the records. Not just for listening, but for holding, for studying. The album art was often as important as the music it contained, a visual extension of the band's message. You'd spend hours poring over the gatefold sleeves, reading the liner notes, deciphering the lyrics, admiring the photography. Each album was a treasure, a carefully chosen piece of your identity. Stacks of vinyl would grow, leaning against the wall, nestled in crates or carefully organized on shelves. Each one represented a memory, a mood, a moment in time. Fleetwood Mac's Rumors, Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon, Led Zeppelin's 4, Carole King's Tapestry. These weren't just albums. They were soundtracks to our lives, shared experiences, silent witnesses to countless dreams and heartbreaks. The act of choosing a record, carefully sliding it from its sleeve, placing it on the platter, flipping it over for side B, all of it was a deliberate, tactile engagement with music that is largely absent today. Streaming is convenient, instantaneous, but it lacks the physical connection, the ritual, the commitment. There was a sense of ownership, of investing not just money, but time and attention into your music collection. The warmth of the analog sound, the occasional pop and hiss that only added to its character, created an intimacy with the music that is hard to replicate digitally. The record player and its final treasures weren't just objects. They were portals, time machines, instruments of discovery and self-definition. They were the beating heart of a teenager's room, a direct line to their soul. As we gently close the door on that 1970s bedroom, we can see how these four common objects, the embracing beanbag chair, the storytelling poster-covered walls, the mesmerizing lava lamp, and the soul-stirring record player with its stacks of vinyl, weren't just things. They were anchors in a sea of change, expressions of individuality, and silent companions to a generation coming of age. They spoke of a time when connection was physical, entertainment was tangible, and personal spaces were deeply, uniquely expressive. While the forms of self-expression may have evolved, and technology has shifted how we connect with music and art, the desire for a space that truly reflects who we are, that remains our own sanctuary, is a timeless yearning. So, as you reflect on these vanished treasures, I invite you to share your own memories in the comments below. What was your favorite item in your 1970s bedroom? What piece of furniture or decor defined your space? Perhaps that one practical takeaway from today's journey is simply this. Take a moment to look around your own personal space, your sanctuary, and consider what objects there truly speak to who you are, what stories they tell about your journey. Because even as times change and objects fade, the essence of creating a space that feels like home, a space that reflects your truest self, that feeling never truly vanishes.